Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm doing another subscriber mystery box. This one is a goldfish cracker box. Look at that. This is from Sophia. If you're not familiar with the series, I open a box sent to me by a subscriber and then I send a thank you package back to the subscriber, including the art that I create in this video. And if you want the rules on how to enter to be able to send me a box, the link is down below. So let's just jump right into it. Let's just get into this box. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, never mind. There's more tape. Now, here we go. Da, 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 da. Okay, looks like the letter is right here on top. Some cute washi tape. Oh, supplies. Okay, hide that, hide that. I saw the word Bristol, but we'll hide that. This is so cute. Metallic, pink, and the scalloped mermaid-esque pattern. I love it. I love the fall. Hey Bailey, my name is Sophia. I'm a high school student in California. I've been watching you since middle school and you are a huge inspiration to me. I'm also an artist and my Insta is at sophia.k.art. I love your fur babies and I have one of my own. His name is Onyx. I hope you like the art supplies I sent you. I decided to theme it and I'm excited to see what you'll create. Love, Sophia. Thank you so much. There we go. Just feeling it to make sure I'm not throwing out anything. Okay. This is pretty cool. It's like plasticky, yet very soft. Oh my goodness. This feels like a lot just in this one piece right here. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna have to pull this out. We have all kinds of markers and pens and things here. Okay, well, let's look at these first since they're unwrapped. We have a micron pen, size 08. We have Artist Loft illustration pen, size 0.3. Oh, perfect, perfect. That looks nice. I haven't tried these before. Oh, this one's Prismacolor. Okay, I haven't tried these ones. I have tried these Prismacolor ones, but that was ages ago. Oh, this is bringing back the memories. This is the first liner I ever had. It was a set of Prismacolor liners. They're great. Yeah, awesome, awesome. The memories. Let's open this one next. We have some gel pens. I think pens might be the theme, although I'm not sure. It could also be color theme. I spy some other yellows and stuff in here. So yeah, sparkle gel pens. We have a few yellows, an orange, and this burgundy type color. They go together nicely. I like that. I see some pencil tips poking out of here. So yes, more yellows and kind of browny colors. I like this. Ooh, this is good. I see the theme. I see the theme. These are Sargent art. There's quite a few there. Then this little guy. Oh my goodness, it's gold glitter. Wow. Next, let's dig into these. Okay, we have, what are these? Super markers, permanent markers. Again, some orangey colors. And metallic permanent marker fine point pen. I forgot I had the side view camera active, so here you go. Here's a close-up of the metallic pen. There's also this one, and then these markers here. They have a triangular barrel, which is very interesting. Then these bad boys. Oh, these are Spectrum Noir. Ooh, Spectrum Noir Basics, permanent markers. So we got a nice fat chisel nib. Let's switch back to the top-down view. And then a fine point nib on this side. And again, it looks like the colors match the theme. Oh, whoa, look at these caps. They have an irregular jagged edge, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing the theme here. This looks pretty fun, but there's something else. There's probably still that Bristol in there. Oh my god, I just realized the box matches the color theme too. It was foreshadowing all along. Inside here, we have what I'm assuming is the Bristol. There we go. And there are 3 sheets. Perfect. So now consulting the card, supplies. Bristol paper, an assortment of themed supplies. Go crazy, but cute. Okay, I like that. Can use your own glue, yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm actually very excited for this. So I'm going to do some swatches to see what these all look like. Bales. Yeah, that's out of frame. Might want to move the camera. Okay, there you go. So I'm starting off by testing the liners. What I love is that the liners are 3 different sizes. So the Micron is the 08, Artist Loft is 03, the Prismacolor is the 01. And I started doing squiggles across, as you see here, because I thought I would test out the markers with the inks to see which ones would smudge and which ones wouldn't. So I have a test with the Spectrum Noirs, the Super Markers, the gold skinny I wrote, and gold wide. Although the wide gold is more of a bronze, but I didn't really realize that until I did the swatch. Then I colored the Spectrum Noir ones and labeled them. They didn't have any number labels, but they did have names, so I just wrote the names underneath. And then the super markers did have names and letter codes, so I wrote both of those down. And yes, they are super markers, not super barkers. I don't know why I said that. So next I tested out the gel pens. There was a dark yellow and then some light yellows and an orangey one. The light yellows pretty much all look the same. Well, they look the same almost as the light one. The darker ones were just a touch darker. And then there was that beautiful wine colored one, which I think was my favorite. And I also tested the gold pens on top of marker to see how opaque they were, but they're not like paint pens, so they don't really work on top of the dark color. You can see where it is, but it's not the same thing as using gold paint. So I was glad I tested that out in advance and didn't have to find out when I'm in the middle of the drawing. So now I'm doing my smudge test, and surprisingly, but also not so surprisingly, the microns were really smudging. This is why I don't use microns for my Copic art, even though microns are fantastic liners. They do smudge a little bit. They can withstand the alcohol ink quite a bit, but they smudge. And as you can see, the other 2 that I tested did not smudge. The Prismacolor had just like the teensiest bit of smudge, but the Artist Loft one is the one that held up the best. So that's what I used primarily for my outlines, although I did use all 3. And there are the swatches. So I want to show you some of my brainstorming. I didn't film it because I really had no idea where I was going with this, and it took me a while to actually come up with something. Initially, I was drawing this girl sitting on a staircase, putting her shoes on, but I decided I didn't want to do that for this video and for this color scheme. And then I wanted to do maybe a romper with these big flowy sleeves, and there could be very pattern detailed designs on the sleeves. I actually quite like this pose here, it's cute. But I just wanted detail somewhere. Like I started thinking of sunflowers, and I wanted sunflower details. That's why there was going to be patterns of that on here. I was playing around with the different fabric things, the romper again. I just couldn't figure out what I liked. I drew my cat as a sunflower. Here I was doing a little lacy border again, just imagining what some of the detail could look like. Then I thought, well, what if there's a fan? Because the fan can have detail in addition to the outfit, but I didn't like this posing or anything like that. And then I drew these. This is where I started to have a breakthrough. First I drew this, and I like the flow and feel of this and the drop shoulder and stuff like that. It's nice and flowy. But I want something like this where there's lots of detail, like maybe the front of her hair is braided, there's a bow there, there's flowers in her hair, stuff like that. So this is what the hair piece could look like. Maybe she's holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Here's what the dress could look like, and that's a thumbnail I sketched out, and here's an even smaller one showing maybe I could have flowers around the border of it. I looked up what a sunflower leaf looks like, and there was me practicing a sunflower. There's the back side of a sunderflower, sort of the side view. So ultimately this is the idea I like, and I kind of want to just take this and scale it up and print it off as the rough sketch, as I usually do, because the thumbnails just always turn out better. So that's what I'm going to do. Here's what it looks like blown up and printed out, and then I'm drawing on top of it to refine this sketch. And man, I struggled so hard to come up with this. Like, I showed you my sketches, but there was so much research and brainstorming going on in between all of that. It was one of those days where I just could not get an idea out, but sometimes you just have to force an idea out. I know that doesn't sound lovely, doesn't sound like You can't always wait for that divine inspiration. Sometimes you just gotta force yourself to come up with something. So it took a while, but finally by the end of that day, I came up with an idea. So the next day is when I actually started the art, because I spent the whole day before that trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And you know what? It was so worth it, because I'm so happy with how this art turned out. It's one of my favorites, I think, that I've done. So it was worth all that time put into it and all that thought. I'm trying to do this all in one go without pausing, because when I record these voiceovers, I'll say a little bit and then I'll stop and I'll hit the space bar to pause the video, and I'll sit there thinking of what I'm going to say next. And back in the day, though, back in the early Baylee Creations days, back in the Zed Kitty Zed days, I would just sit down and do the whole voiceover, no pauses, nothing. I would import the audio into my editor. I would trim the beginning and the end where there's just dead space where I'm not saying anything. And that was it. I wouldn't even listen back to it, because I knew I just did it all in one perfect take with no pauses. And I think back on that all the time, because now I struggle so hard to talk for a full video, and I don't know why. I need to stop all the time. I just did it again, but I took a sip of boba, so it was worth it. So one thing you'll see here is her eyes are really wide open, but she's kind of looking down, so her eyelids should be partially closed. And in my sketchbook, I drew an eyeball detached from the rest of the face that was half closed, because that's how I wanted to do it. But for some reason, I just didn't even think of that while I was doing the sketch, despite the fact that I had the sketchbook propped open right in front of me. So I had to erase it and redo it. I actually ended up fixing her whole face later in Photoshop, because her facial features were a little too low on her face and just a little too small. Like, her face just got scrunched down, so I had to select the facial features and just zoom in a bit, just scale them up so that it would fit her face a bit better. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to have to redraw the whole face just because I should have drawn it larger. So being able to scan it and then print the sketch out again is a huge help. For the dress, I wanted there to be a lot of detail towards the bottom, and then that detail would fade as you went up the dress, like a gradient of detail. So I put sunflowers on there, and then they just got smaller and smaller until they're just dots. And I also did a border of sunflowers, because that was going to be the theme, sunflowers, because the colors just totally make sense for sunflowers. I just want to go back to talking about the character's hair for a minute, because I think that's what I like so much about this, is the way I did the curls, because a lot of the lines are sort of fluffy looking like clouds. Like, instead of one swooping motion that leads into a curl, it's like a number 3 shape, and I think that's why I like it so much. I like the look, and I love the daintiness. So here's a side-by-side of the version that was fixed and the non-fixed version. So the face is bigger on the left. Now, I printed off 3 of the thumbnail sketches, or not 3, that's 4. I swear I know how to count. I printed off 4 of those so I could test out the colors, because I really wanted to plan the colors ahead of time, especially with a limited color palette. You have to plan it out, because you don't want a bunch of objects that are the same color to be nested against each other. You want to space them out. And you might think, okay, I have 3 yellows. But then you think about it, you're going to use all 3 of those to shade with each other, because the regular yellow needs shadows. And so you really don't have as many colors as you think you do, because you need them to shade with. That's why I really wanted this planned out in advance. All I really knew is I wanted her hair to be brown, and then I'm just going to go from there. So I drew her sleeve and the top of her dress that reddish color at first. That's the terracotta. But then beside it, I drew a version where it's brown at the top, but then the sleeve is white, and underneath there's a red line of lace. And I thought that's what I was going to go with, was that second option. But as you'll see later, I went with neither of those options. And what happens when you deviate from your plans? Chaos. Chaos. That's what happens. So anyway, I was also playing around with how I would shade in the sunflowers and how I would do the border. And for the sunflower leaves, I used the gold pens, because it just made sense. I didn't know where else I was going to use the gold, but also there's no green, which was actually really nice, because if I was just coming up with the color scheme on my own, I totally would have snuck some green in there. I know I would have used YG 61, 63, and 65, I think it is. I would have used those ones, but because I couldn't, I was like, oh my god, the gold actually works amazingly, especially since the skinny gold marker is slightly on the green side. So it was just one of those things where it just turned out better than I would have done it otherwise. Wow, I'm doing really poorly at the one take thing. Well, it's all been one take, but I mean the pausing thing. The pausing thing. I've paused it about 10 times already just in this section, and I paused it about 10 times during the swatch section. Anyway, outlining with the Artist Loft pen because, according to my testing, that was the one that was the least likely to smudge out of the three, and it was just the perfect size. I love 0.3 multiliners. Although I think this is slightly thinner than a Copic 0.3, maybe? It really depends. Even like the Copic multiliners versus the SP, they're slightly different if you hold them side by side, like two 03s side by side. They're not the same. But this was just a lovely, lovely size. So I used it for most of the drawing, and then I used the other ones here and there. Because the Micron was prone to smudging, I mostly used it at the very end to color on top of an, or not color, but like outline on top of an area that's already been colored, knowing I wouldn't go back over it again with marker. Having these real-time clips makes the inking so much more satisfying. I usually don't include too much of the inking because you're seeing me outline something you just saw me draw, so it feels a little redundant, but these clips are so satisfying. I just had to include them, especially with this pen. It just looks good. It's nice to watch. So yeah, for the insides of the sunflowers, I'm scribbling them in because the browns I have were not super dark, and so I knew to get the darkness inside the flower, I would use the pen. So there's squigglies along the outside and some dots, and the inside also is scribbled in, and there are some dots around it. That way it's acting like shading, because they're two browns, and they're both very similar. Well, technically three if you count the yellow ochre. That's like the light yellowy brown I use for the base of the hair, as you'll see. Also, here are my cats. They really loved the box, and so I just had to include that. They've been going in that box constantly. In fact, Kiki's eyeing it up as I speak, and she's about to jump into it. So yeah, coloring the hair here. This is yellow ochre, and it was pretty much a brown. It's like a light brown, so technically there's three. But for the sunflowers, I really had the earth brown and coffee bean to work with, which is why I used the liners to create some darkness. That's one of the fun things about these mystery box videos is how are you going to overcome the challenges? Like, okay, I can't do green leaves, so what am I going to do? Okay, I don't have a super dark color for these sunflowers, so what am I going to do? You know, it's a challenge that way. You got to problem solve. So yeah, for the hair, I laid down yellow ochre as the base, and then I went in with earth brown, which is the slightly lighter one, and added some shading. It's kind of like the test, because I knew these areas would have to be the darkest brown, but I'm going in with the second darkest to map it out a little bit in case I do something I don't like and I want to change my mind. It just helps you plan out the shadows in advance with less commitment. Now, I know people are going to say, this would make a very nice coloring page. And I agree. And people have already said it because I was working on some of this during a live stream. By the way, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/BayleeJ. The schedule is over there at that URL that I just stated. Anyway, yeah, it is a very nice coloring page. But if I keep releasing them individually on my website for free, then I'm never going to make that coloring book that I've been saying for years that I'm going to make. Because I feel like I should start stockpiling line art that I use for other things and then also make new ones that are only found in the book. But to be honest, like that's far from my list of priorities right now. Who knows when that'll happen? Eventually, someday, I'll have enough line art that I want to use and I'll make the darn book. But for now, not a priority. Mostly I've been focusing on my online store if I'm not working on videos or doing live streams. This will also not be a print in my next store launch because I already ordered my prints for the next launch. I don't have them yet, but they're on their way. So this one missed the boat, but the one after that, it'll be available. And it's available on Redbubble now if you would prefer that. Because the ones I do through my online shop are always hollow prints. And if you want non-hollow, then you can go to Redbubble. Okay, back to the process here. I'm coloring in the skin with the pencils. And it was a bit of a struggle because the Bristol is super smooth, which, by the way, amazing for the markers. I was enjoying that so much. It just worked perfectly for the markers. For the pencils, harder because there's no tooth for the pencil to stick to, but also these pencils were not very pigmented at all, so I had to be careful and just slowly layer it up to build up the shadows. So that's why it's also very lightly shaded, because that's pretty much that's as much as I could do. So for the sunflowers, I would do a base color of Daffodil, which is one of the Spectrum Noirs, and then I'd go in with the darkest color, which is Sienna from the Super Markers, and then I'd go in with Aniseed, if I'm saying that correctly, which was a Spectrum Noir. That's the medium tone, and I would blend it out. Or sometimes I would just go straight to the dark orange and then do medium then light, because you always have to go back to the light color anyway, so sometimes you can skip the base coat step and just go straight to your shadow if you're confident enough. Like, there's enough sunflowers on this thing that after a couple I was more confident and I could just go straight to the darkest shadows right away. And yes, I did get sick of outlining these, especially because there's the bouquet and all the ones on her dress. I wanted detail, and boy, I gave myself detail, but you spend all this time drawing them all, but then you gotta draw them again when you ink them. So it was like non-stop sunflowers. Ooh, also, if I colored something with the gold markers, they would fade the black inks, so I'd have to go back over it again with the inks to darken it up. So the leaves got inked many, many times. Okay, well, twice. I drew them once and then inked them twice. But yeah, that's how I would color in the sunflowers. I didn't show myself coloring all of them because we would be here all day, all day. So now I'm using my darkest brown, the coffee bean, to color in the border part. I purposely wanted the border to overlap with her head being in front. And then the bottom of her dress also overlaps in front of the border, but her legs go behind the border. So a little interesting there. Initially, her legs kind of faded into nothing right around the border. And then I was like, well, they have to extend past it. Otherwise, it's just weird because the rest of her overlaps with the border. So the legs got to follow through. So I did extend them so they go to the edge of the page. So yeah, I colored the sleeve yellow. Why would I do that to myself? That was not in the plan. But I did it anyway. Okay. I also colored the strip of lace underneath it brown, and then the one underneath that, the terracotta color. But then it was like a little rainbow thing going on, which I didn't want. So that's what happens when you just wing it. Problems arise. Although I did like the look of the yellow sleeve, but it stood out too much, because initially the sleeve was going to be white because the main fabric for the dress is white, so it makes sense for them to match. But it felt like too much white because there's white behind her. Her sleeve would just be kind of chilling there against the white of the background, plus her skin is so pale, it was just too much lightness. So I thought, okay, well, how am I going to salvage this then? At this point, I'm coloring the bottom lace gold because I wanted it to contrast more with the white of her dress. And then I'm just adding some pencil shading to the dress itself, and I start coloring on the bouquet. Although I have more to say about the dress, but I guess I'm out of order here, so we'll get back to the dress. We'll get back to the dress in a second, because I'm not done talking about that. So yeah, working on the bouquet, bunch of little flowers to color in, but because they're so tiny, you don't have to be too meticulous. Like, it's not the same level of detail as the big ones have. You kind of just get in there and slather your color around, just add a bit of shadows here and there. It's all right. It's all good. And then again, using the golds for the green portions, which is the stem and leaves, because it just looks good like that. It just looks good. Okay, I'm getting a little crazy. I'm getting a little hyper. Getting more and more hyper as this video goes on. Okay. Ooh, yes. Also, in the bouquet and in her flowers in her hair, some of the little white dots I left white. They're kind of like baby's breath. And then some of them I colored red like little berries, just to include more red. Okay, so now we're getting back to the dress. So I'm starting to color the bottom of the dress yellow. Why? Because that darn yellow sleeve, I need to balance it out. I actually went in Photoshop and played around with making her dress yellow, and I didn't really like that. And I tried just a yellow strip at the bottom. Didn't like that. And then I did a gradient from yellow at the bottom to white at the top, and that was the winner. That looked good. It helped tie in the yellow sleeve, and it just added more color to the piece so it's not a bunch of whiteness. And I also played around with adding an oval in the background, and that looked really good too. So I did that with the sort of orangey red pencil. I added that oval in there, and that just made it work. It was one of those things where I was mad at myself for coloring the sleeve yellow, but then I fixed it. I solved the problem, and now it's even better than it was before. So it paid off in the end. So here I'm filming my finishing shot of this, like, woohoo, look at the finished drawing. And as I was editing this video, the part where I was unboxing everything, I'm like, oh yeah, here's some glitter. And I was like, oh crap, I didn't use the glitter. So I've been done this art for like 2 days, but I had to go back to it and add the glitter to it. So I decided to add it to the oval because I didn't want to put it anywhere else. And the oval's a big shape, so it's easy to add glitter. So I just used a glue stick and gently sprinkled on a thin layer of glitter. Nothing too crazy, but I scanned it before I added the glitter because 1, that was before I remembered the glitter, and 2, glitter does not scan well. So any prints I do of this will not have the glitter, but man, the glitter just makes it so good. It makes the oval almost a little too noticeable, but at the same time, it looks so fabulous. It just looks so good like that. So thank you, Sophia, for including the glitter. And thank you, Sophia, for sending this package in general. She's going to receive this original art along with a bunch of other goodies that I'm sending her as a thank you. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next subscriber mystery box video. Woohoo! Well, I'll see you in other videos first, but eventually you'll see another one. Woohoo!